The Strutfit Show, bringing retail into the future.
Hello and welcome to the Strutfit Show. I'm your host, Ang Nair. I'm also the CEO of Strutfit, where our vision is the same as the vision for this show, to bring retail into the future. Every episode, I'll be joined by a guest who is leading or innovating in some part of the retail spectrum, from design to manufacturing to marketing and even to sales. We'll discuss trends, learnings, and ideas, and really try to figure out what the top performers in your field are doing. Along the way, we'll discover some lessons you can apply to your own career and hopefully even have some fun. All right, let's do it.
Okay. Well, I'm here with NJ Falk. Have I said your name right? I should have checked before we started, but have I nailed it?
You've absolutely nailed it. That's
Awesome.
my name.
NJ Falk of APL and so many more things. Like I've got a list here of all the things you've done. You've just done some amazing work in e-commerce and in fashion. I follow your Instagram, so I see all the fashion stuff. And typically, so the Strutfit Show, usually we bring people on and we're talking about specifically retail, and there's all these innovations happening in retail, and often it gets siloed. You know, like I spoke to someone from manufacturing, and often someone in marketing doesn't know how shoes are manufactured. So we're like, hey, let's break these silos down. But today we're like, hey, let's actually focus on leadership, and given your expertise, I think women in leadership as well. So I'd love to get into that. But before we do all of that, how about you give us an intro about yourself, and let's just start with an intro about yourself.
I'd love to give you an intro about myself, and I also love the topic of leadership because that's near and dear to my heart, because it's all about giving back. So that's integral to everything that I'm doing. You know what? I'm a left, right brain person. I'm a creative. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a multiple Webby, Davey, and Communicator award-winning creative. And I'm happily the managing partner of APL, Athletic Propulsion Labs, our men's and women's athletic footwear brand that is just an incredible global brand that's pioneered luxury performance in the luxury performance category. I also have another role as the co-founder and chief mentorpreneur, which is a term I trademarked for the Forward Female, and we're a consulting and creative agency for female entrepreneurs, and it's with my two partners, and it's another way for me to give back. I definitely feel like I've been at the forefront and an e-commerce pioneer and expert over the years, and I also have juggled my roles that I'm doing now as a strategic advisor or angel investor from some really incredible companies. And I usually focus on luxury consumer brands, brands founded by females, and anything that sort of has an incredible niche. Some of the companies I'm working with now are Webby and Honoré, which is all about size inclusivity and in the luxury segment. Starface, a beauty brand that's pioneered putting stickers and things on your face and making acne and treatment a positive conversation and turning that upside down. Bumo Work, which is all about child care out of the home and in an educational environment. Artha, which is about wellness. Modern Picnic, which I love, and I carry their bags every day. It's the lunchbox reinvented. DeMarson, a luxury jewelry brand I work with, and I did a collab with them this year. The FLOORR, which is doing incredible new ways of curating fashion and disseminating it for the consumer. And The Bunker, which is a brand new auto enthusiast club based in Los Angeles that's really at the top end of the market. Other fun things that I've had the opportunity to do is be a brand ambassador for Net-A-Porter. I'm a member of the International Academy of Visual Arts and the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences, and an executive member and a judge. I'm on NYU's and Stern School of Business, Luxury, and Fashion Council. Do a lot of giving back with breast cancer research through Women's Cancer Research Fund, and we do our annual breast cancer shoe and donate the proceeds to that. And had my blog, The Blonde and the Brunette, for many years, which was inspired by an invitation from Mrs. Prada to go to one of the runway shows. And I won a Webby for that too, and love writing. And then for the past 4 or 5 years was contributor to Forbes on my journalistic side and my copywriting side, and my swim lane there was highly actionable business and lifestyle advice. So I'm also a graduate of Tisch. I have my BFA in film and television, NYU in marketing and economics, and journalism from NYU. And I try and do it all with a lot of lattes and my chill out channel that I listen to all the time, my chill out playlist, which keeps me centered.
What sort of
And I
what sort of
run.
music is on the chill out playlist?
Oh my gosh, everything from ABT to, oh my goodness. I have to find my list and recite some of my favorite things, but I definitely use that to get me through the day. And I also use it when I'm running, because I run about 2 miles every
Nice.
day in my APL.
Of course, in the APLs. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so many things, right? Like I'm surprised you can remember them all. I've got two questions, and they might be deep questions, they might be hard questions. I'll start with the first one. So you do so many do
Okay.
so many things, right? You're like, that was like minutes of all the things you're doing, and multiply that by the hours that you spend doing it. And no one's asking you to do these things, right? Like clearly money isn't an issue. Like you don't care about money. I imagine you're like, okay, cool. You're really successful, so that's not a really big deal. So now you can do whatever you want, and you're doing all these things. What do you think interests you about sort of all of them? Is there like one thing which you're like, oh, I'm drawn to this, and this is why I do these things?
Well, there's actually a lot of questions there. So I'm going to break it
Sure.
down. I care about a lot of different things. I'm very self-motivated, hardworking. I've always been like that. I actually do care about doing well. I care about profitability. And I think hard work takes you a lot of great places in
Mhm.
life. And you have to follow your passions to be successful at those things. I've always had a creative passion. I've always had a business passion. I've always balanced the two, but I've also always pursued and followed change. And that's the interesting thing. I think it's education and continuing to educate yourself. And it's also about following all the world around you and continuing to change because the world around you is changing, and embracing that. So I'm curious. I want to do well. I want to keep changing. And you know what? It all comes down to me wanting to be part of the conversation that's going on in the creative world and in the business world and everything that's going on globally. And that means me pushing myself and enjoying that. And that's part of the whole process. And I think money is part of the reward of that, but it's also seeing your team succeed, seeing other people succeed, giving back. So it's the combination of those things.
Amazing. And then, so I mean, that all makes sense, and it's great to get that. It's great to get that insight. You mentioned giving back like 5 times now, so clearly that's something very important to you. Often, so I feel the same way. Like I started the company in Auckland. We could have gone anywhere, but Auckland. I came here when I was 7 from India, and Auckland as a city gave a lot to me. So I'm like, well, I want to base the company here. I want to give back to Auckland and help Auckland thrive. And had a lot of help along the way. Had mentors, and I'm like, I've received all this help, and sort of want to give it back. So I'm wondering if that's something simple. Like, have you had like a mentor which you were like, wow, this I've received all this help. And now I want to give this back. It'd be interesting to see what sort of, I guess, help you've had along the way.
I've had a lot of different types of help along the way, and I have to say it really all started with my mother. who's no longer living and has been gone for a long time. But she was an incredible role model for me, and she was so ahead of her time. She was actually a graduate of Parsons School of Design, NYU in art history, had a career during like the 50s, 60s, and was like the Peggy of Madmen and a creative director. And she was really the proponent of how important it is to craft your own life, be self-sufficient, and all those other things that come into life and into play are like the lucky strike extra. But it all starts with you and what you're believing in for yourself and what you're interested in, and having this journey through life that adds to all these different things happening. So she mentored me. She was an incredible example. And my dad actually died at a very young age. My mother was widowed at 39. He died in a plane crash. So I saw how important it was to have be self-sufficient, have a career, and make your way in the world and be independent. That doesn't mean you don't have all those wonderful other things in life where it's family and all those other things, but you also need, at the end of the day, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, because sometimes bad things happen to good people. So that's part of it. And then I was lucky with her advice and counsel in some of my corporate jobs, which I forgot to mention. I worked at MGM, Universal Studios, American Express, and a big ad agency at one time in Boston. And I had some great mentors along the way. And actually, most of them were men. And they really cared about me and other people doing well. And that meant providing not just only positive feedback, but constructive input about how to do things better and be better. And I can honestly say sometimes it took me a while to learn how to take that kind of feedback, but I realized when I started to embrace it, I could be better at what I was doing. It wasn't necessarily personal. It was about making the business better, the team better, and how I could further my own career if I wanted to really listen. So I think those things happen throughout life, and you have to be receptive and use those as opportunities.
Awesome. Okay, and on mentor, I love the term mentorpreneur, by the way. I was,
I
that's so like actually so cool. Okay, well, so you
am. I like a mentor
yeah.
on one side. I'm an entrepreneur on another, and it's back to your point. It's about giving back. So because I didn't have that as much
Mm,
myself, uh, I wanted to give that to other people as I got further along in my career, because I was wishing for a little bit more of that myself. And the funny thing about finding a mentor is sometimes that person is sitting in front of you. Sometimes you build those relationships over time. And now when I work with some of the brands, I will meet with the founders, the CEOs, or other members of the team, and we'll have regular meetings. And that's how we do it. We do it every 2 or 3 weeks. They bring through 3 or 4 issues, problems, good things too. They have the ability to reach out, and we can share this mutual experience. And it's not just me giving, I'm learning from them too. So I always feel like it's a two-way street. It's not just me. I get to learn from them because they're doing things, or maybe they're in touch with something I don't know about, and I get to learn too. So it's a two-way
that
street.
is awesome. I feel so much the same way around this mentorpreneurship. I'm not as far along in my entrepreneurship career and not actively mentoring anyone at the moment, but we've got Andrew Steele, who's one of our directors, who was the CFO of 42 Below, which is was it a vodka? White rum. Anyway, alcohol company. No, it was vodka. It was a vodka company. There we go. 42 Below, vodka company, amazing vodka company. And we've now gotten to where he said this in one of our meetings. He's like, I gave him some feedback, and he's like, oh, now the value is flowing in both directions. And I was like, oh, it's so rewarding, right?
As it should. As it should, because as I said at the beginning, it's about continuing to learn and educate yourself. And that means a cross-generational approach to everything. And everybody should be hopefully sharing things because we have so much to give each other. And sometimes we forget about how to have those dialogues. It also means making sure how you communicate. Different generations like to communicate in different ways. You know, somebody's FaceTiming somebody else's SMS, somebody's email, somebody else is insisting on a phone call. So it's important to be sensitive to how different people want to communicate in in order to get the most out of it, and think about it, what makes them the most comfortable, not what makes you the most comfortable, what works for them.
Okay, so on that note, then, what are some key like what makes a good mentor? Like, so, and so I'll pitch this question specifically for, let's say there's people who are in a similar position to you, that they've done incredibly well, and they want to give back, and they're like, cool, I want to mentor someone. Maybe they're a bit nervous around, like, I want to be a mentor, but I don't know where to start. Like, I don't know what makes a good mentor. So what would your advice be to them?
My advice is find a company or a person that you're sincerely interested in, that you already have a relationship with, and that sparks your interest. And you say, you know what, I think I want to learn more. I think I could contribute something to this. And I think I could slowly build this relationship. And again, it's breaking it down like we talked about in the beginning, and only addressing a few things each conversation, making yourself available, and also sort of giving them a structure and a foundation to follow. They come with some questions, they come with some issues, and also if they're having a big problem or something comes up, they have to feel the freedom to call you up in an emergency so you guys can collaborate, talk it over, find solutions together. It doesn't mean you always do, but there's a comfort in that partnership and the teamwork and figuring things out
So do
together.
you, in building that sort of, it sounds like trust, and um, it's at least trust, and it's something more than that. Like, they're happy to call you on the phone, even though knowing you're really busy. They're like, cool, NJ is still open enough to receiving this phone call if I really require it.
Right, or a
Yeah.
text message or something. And the other thing is there's like this cone of silence and trust that goes on between you and these individuals so that they know that they have a safe space and you're not out there sharing what's going on. They know they can trust you, and you have to honor that and keep those
So how do
promises.
you, I can see how, just by the way you speak, and sort of the values that you exuberate, seems like a big word, but maybe that you could kind of, these rules could be unspoken, and they'd be sort of implicit, and they would sort of have this trust already. But do you make it explicit as well? You're like, hey, these are sort of the ground rules. Like, you tell me anything, I won't tell anyone, and you can call me whenever. Is that something you do in terms of building those ground rules?
I definitely do that right at the start of the relationship, that this is how it's going to be structured, this is how it's going to work. And I think what happens is over time, they find out, wow, this is really how it is working. This is what it's really happening. And the trust level grows over time because that's exactly what's going on. And I'm really good at honoring people's and companies' privacies. I mean, we all sign NDAs all the time. I mean, signing an NDA means something, and I'm good for my word.
Awesome. That's awesome. So we've touched on, cool, somebody wants to be a mentor and what makes a good mentor. This is actually a question a friend of mine sent me like last week, and she's this amazing cookie entrepreneur of all things. It's like milk and cookies out of New Zealand. She started when she was 21, completely bootstrapped the entire thing, no funding. Started out of a small shop, then the rent got put up, and she's like, I can't afford this rent. What am I going to do? Crowdfunded a bus and made the bus the shop, and now she's got, I don't know, 4 or 5 stores, and she's doing amazing, employs 50 people, and just it took her 10 years of just grinding, like 4 a.m. nights, some sleepless nights. And so she's reached what she feels is probably like a good level, but she's like, cool, I got here by myself, but like, sort of what's next? And she doesn't have that mentor. So she's like, Ang, how did you find your mentor? And I was like, I just got lucky. Like I was at a business program at the University of Auckland. It was like an extracurricular program, and we were assigned a mentor as part of the business planning competition. And he just happened to be fucking amazing. And I'm like, we just got really lucky. So I can't be of active help for you. But given that you sort of work in the space, how would you suggest people find, or maybe even specifically for Deanna, this cookie entrepreneur who's 31, and she's like, I want to find a mentor. How does she begin?
I think she should begin by thinking about who she knows, that she already knows, that she admires, she feels comfortable with, who can also bring her the kind of information and expertise and thought-provoking questions and ideas that she can take to the next level. And that person might be in her sphere. If she looks at her whole sphere and in her all of her connections and says, you know what, that person is not there, then I think the next step, and I've done this a lot in my life, is start asking people who would be a great person. Who do you think I should connect with? And there's no shame in ever asking for that. I mean, I remember when I moved from Boston to LA, and I needed a new job, and I wanted to go into entertainment because that was my background. And I started asking everyone I knew, look, who do you know? Who can you connect me with, etc. And you have to put some of that shyness and those feelings aside and say it's all okay. And everyone is actually really comfortable when you ask those things. You just have to start doing it. It's like everything else. Just like she started the business and she put one foot in the front of the other, and she built the foundation. She can do the same thing with looking for a mentor.
I really like the asking. It's like really, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? We live in our own worlds in our heads, and the only way we can sort of affect the outside world is with talking. And yeah, often we're so scared to talk and to ask and sort of take a leap. But I find it's like what's the worst that could happen, right?
And I get shy too sometimes. I have to push myself out of my shell sometimes and say, well, how am I going to do this, or who should I contact? And I literally step back and think about it. A lot of times I write down what I think I should do, and I prepare, and I memorize it and I rehearse it. It's just like a presentation you would do for a big client or an investor, etc. It's the same sort of thing. You need to prepare for those moments. Do your homework.
Awesome. Okay, so zooming out from mentor, well, I think we've clocked mentorship. It's like we've covered both sides, and that's so good. So let's zoom out. You're like, cool. I did with MGM, Universal. So you've changed sort of careers a few times, or yeah, I think they're like probably similar industries, but they're different enough roles. How did you decide when it was time to sort of move on to a new industry or a new role? Because I have this with friends. In fact, I have a friend who's, how much detail can I give here? He's just left Nike. You won't be able to identify him with this. He's just left Nike, and he was at a startup for a while, and he was like, oh, this is like good, but you know, I want to do the next thing, and he's not quite sure exactly what that is. So yeah, how do you identify when, because there'll be people listening to this who are in roles and they're like, I kind of like this role, but I'm ready for something new. I don't know what that is, or maybe I know what that is and I'm afraid to do it. Maybe also two different questions then. One is, I know I want to do something new, something next. How did you identify that?
Well, I've always followed things I'm passionate about. I've also, like I said at the beginning of this, I followed how the world is changing and I want to be a part of it. And then I usually give myself about a year to make a change. and I start to think about it and start watching everything that's going on around me and say, you know what? I think if I'm starting to feel that way, it's time for that change. Just like I got involved in e-commerce, and it happened when I actually went to the wedding channel as the executive vice president, and then it became the Knot, and we started to develop bridal registries and do all these things. And you know what? That was a difficult time because it was the beginning and the emergence of so much that was happening online and e-commerce and customers and these new dialogues and building websites. And I said, you know what, I want to become an expert at this. And it's hard work learning these new things, but I love the process of digging deep and starting the change. So if someone should start thinking about, well, what's the change they want? What are they interested about? How is the world changing? What part of the conversation do they want to be a part of? And and then they shouldn't put the pressure on themselves to make it happen all at once, because it's impossible. It's sort of something that gradually happens. It's like a building. You lay the foundation down. You pour the concrete. Then you build the first story. And Malcolm Gladwell says this in his famous book, The Tipping Point. It takes 10,000 hours usually to be an expert. So it takes time to become a new expert and build those new skills. Sometimes you can be so hard on yourself, you don't realize that it just takes the time and the dedication. And I'm always so hardworking. I think at the end of the day, I'm hardworking, I'm dedicated. I use this other technique. I
Please.
mean, I have to find it on my right now. I call it a distraction list. I'm not gonna. It's so old school, but it's just this little pad of paper that says "Do it now, do it later." And part of my project management and the way I work all the time is, even if I'm doing emails and I might get like 1,000 a day, and that, um, I write down what are the important things I have to do now. And as I'm thinking and working, I'm writing down all the do it later distractions, and I get back to those. And those are all the things that are also happening in your mind. So you free yourself, and then you can go back
Yeah.
to the list.
That's
And
also
so it's
just on
important to
that.
have
Like,
these.
I stumbled across David Allen's Getting Things Done. It's this, but it's just a few more steps. But the concept is the same. It's like we use our brain as a storage device, and I think you can only hold like 4 things in your brain at once. So you'll be at work and you'll be like, oh, I need to get some toilet paper, and if you don't write it down, is it on there? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If you don't write it down, it stays in your head. And I would have this thing where I would be working on something and I'd be like, is this the most important thing I could be doing? And because I didn't have everything down, it was all in my head. There was that sort of anxiety, or you'd go to sleep, or you'd be trying to go to sleep and you'd be like, have I done everything I needed to do today? So coming across that program, very similar to your list, is just like, take it out of your head. Your head should be used for like creative work and for like thinking stuff, not for storing things. Just put it on paper and just have a clear mind. So yeah, it's all the most. I told after I saw this program, I told all my friends about it, and all the most effective people I know had a system very much like yours. They're like, oh yeah, I already do this.
Well, that's good to know. And I also think you said a very important word there, which was anxiety, because having a system reduces and diminishes anxiety. It doesn't mean that you don't have it sometimes, but it diminishes it. And when you know you have something where you can put it off to the side, and that anxious thing is sitting over there, and that you can address it later, then it makes you a little bit more comfortable throughout the day. Certainly, there are issues that come up uh, in a work day where they're difficult. You can't solve them right away. I tend to take the emotion out of it, step back, and say, you know what? I don't have to have the answer right now. Let me just marinate on this instead of putting the pressure on myself. I'm also writing it down, but let me just marinate on this as opposed to having an emotional, in the moment reaction, because that's the worst thing that you can probably do. Take the emotion
It's
out
so
of things. And it's not easy. It's a skill you have to
yeah.
slowly teach
I get
yourself.
so you said slowly here. You said take your time, and then you also said when you were changing careers, like give yourself like a year. That now I've got friends who are like, I want to change my career, and they're like applying. They're just immediately applying for jobs but they haven't done like the search part of it. They haven't like sat and sort of given themselves the time. And again, you've said it in 3 different areas now, and I think it's just so important. Like we're rushing all the time, and if you just step back and give yourself time, it's not only is it a better outcome, but I think the quality of the moment is like profoundly different when you can sort of remove the anxiety. And I noticed this when I was sitting at my desk over there, and I went to fill up my water bottle. I was doing something which was obviously at the time felt stressful. Now I can't even remember what it is, so that's a lesson in itself. But I went to the kitchen and I filled up my water bottle, but my mind was still at my desk. So I was like filling up the water bottle, and I came back to the desk, and I drank some of the water, and I'm like, hey, I don't remember filling up this water bottle. Like it's full now, but I wasn't there. I was in my head, or I was back at my desk. And so I kind of rushed that. And it's like, well, you almost might as well be dead during that moment. Like I wasn't in that moment, and I was unconscious, and now it's gone. And it's just, all I did was rush there, rush back. And now I'm doing this task, and I was like, I need to do this task, and I'm doing it maybe 20% too quickly. And then you get to the next task, and you do that 22% too quickly. And you're just rushing and doing the next thing. And it's like, well, what are you rushing towards, right? Like, you're rushing towards your death. It's like, enjoy the moment, right?
Exactly. Enjoy the moment. Do that one task right. Get it done right. Go on to the next task. I mean, I have this app on my phone. I don't know what it's called, but one of the apps I have, when I complete something, sometimes trumpets go off, and like, hey, you did a good job. You got something done. It's my own reward. I love something like that, or I love checking that box. And again, it's almost anything super urgent can almost wait if it's really critical and it requires more thought, at least 30 minutes. So it's sort of like you have to take the pressure off yourself so that you can do it right. But I usually do all in the mornings, more the all the tactical things, and so that by the time I get to the afternoon, I can concentrate on the bigger uh, projects, the bigger thought problems, etc. And then I'm not again worrying about the things on the list. I'm on to the bigger things that require me thinking about them much more, and the other things that were supposed to be done quickly are already done. And I think you've seen me witness that, and I'll say like, oh my God, I'm up to the witching hour right now, which is noon for me. And I'm like, I can't talk now because I'm doing, and then I'll get to that stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. I see. Well, we mentioned leadership, and at the start we were like, hey, let's talk about leadership. Already you've mentioned that leadership for you is about the team, right? Like you haven't mentioned leadership as yourself as the leader, right? It was like leadership, and it's like I want to help the team grow. So maybe expand on that a little bit. What is leadership to you?
Actually, leadership is back to as part of our conversation. It's, to me, in many ways, it's about mentoring, because again, it's about the team and the company culture. I mean, at APL, our culture is very much about innovation and excellence. And everybody on our team embraces that. And we all work together to make that happen because we all feel the same way. We want to go in the same direction. So to me, it's about mentoring and having the team feel that way. It's about great communication and sharing information. And one of the things that I personally do is have these brief little uh, group calls 1, 2, 3 times a week, where they don't usually last more than 15 minutes, where we're sharing information, we're getting the details, we're focused on the big issues talking over something small. Anybody can bring anything up and bring an issue up, and we're all collaborating and working together. And it's me bringing the topics up, it's everybody handling it as a group. And to me, that's part of great leadership, is having these dialogues and conversations and everybody working in the same direction and being really excited about that. So that's part of it. To me, that's a really big part of it.
That's really interesting. So the focus is not on, I think, back in the day, I haven't seen Madmen, but maybe Madmen is like this, where it's like the leader and you're like telling people what to do. But here it sounds like, and I don't know if there's a right answer, but it seems more like the right answer. It's like, well, you're more of an enabler. You're like, let's bring people together. These people they're good at different things, and if I can bring them together and create a safe space and sort of invite them to think and sort of prod them when required, then that seems like a much healthier model of leadership. Does that sort of resonate?
Yes, that absolutely resonates. The other part of leadership that is important is allowing people to do their jobs. It's not me micromanaging. It's delegating, providing support, helping people grow so they realize their own career aspirations as well, because that's part of the job. And them learning new things. And in terms of us growing, a business can't grow unless people are doing different things and learning and growing. And that's part of the excitement and keeping everyone involved and engaged, is that they have things that they're looking forward to, that they want to raise their hand for, and they want to pursue, and making sure that you recognize that and giving them those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
So
the other half of it, I think.
That I really like that. One of the things you said was, hey, their career aspirations, and sort of having that explicit, like, you got to know what people want, right? If you don't know where they're heading, then first you can't sort of manage them effectively, and then you can't help them get there because you don't know. So it's worth sort of having that conversation, being like, hey, you're in this role now. What do you like doing, and where do you want to go next?
Yeah.
What do
Don't
you
be
do?
afraid to ask. I mean,
Yeah.
people want to tell you, and you know what's, you get so busy sometimes you forget to ask people, but it's so important to check in. And that's one of the things, even these short conversations throughout the week that only last 10 or 15 minutes with groups or individuals, and just checking in. It's so important. So that's part of mentoring and leadership, is being engaged with the team and caring, and that they know that you care.
Mm. Mm. What would you do? This is a question which just came up in my head, where someone's not, maybe historically someone's been like a fantastic employee, really engaged, and then you notice them, they start to become a bit disengaged, and they're not performing as well. Have you had this? And if someone's having this, how would you sort of suggest they tackle this challenge?
Well, that can absolutely happen. My first thought a lot of times when that happens is perhaps something else is going on in their life, and they're not necessarily want to share it, or are comfortable sharing with it. But it's important to have that conversation and say, is there anything I can do to support you right now? What do you need? How can we work together? And start to have a productive dialogue, because you don't know what's going on. The first thing to do is start talking about it in a very productive kind of way, adding, do you need assistance? Do you need equipment? What's going on? And just start that conversation. You might not
Yeah.
necessarily, it could be something completely different. You don't know.
Awesome. It's really back to talking, right? It's like asking questions, talking, and sort of taking that leap.
Yeah, and that's especially important with Gen Z. There's so much research out now about Gen Z and how much they want to have this dialogue with the people that they're working with, especially their managers and people checking in. So take the initiative. Don't be shy about it. I mean, at the end of the day, communication is what gives you the knowledge to do a better job and help the overall team and the business. It's about
Mm,
supporting the business. It's not about you. It's about what's
mm,
best for the business.
mm. Awesome. And okay, uh, amazing. On to leadership specifically for females, because I think you're obviously very uniquely positioned to answer this question. What barriers, I mean, I'm not at all educated on this. What was the book? Was it Invisible Women? My ex recommended a book to me, which I am going to read, which is like very data driven. It's like, hey, here's all the barriers that women face, but specifically in careers, like in leadership, what are the barriers, like the main barriers you think women face? And then these are the questions which are going to follow. One is what can what can the woman as an individual do, and then what can we as like a system do? But yeah, firstly, what are the barriers?
Gosh, it's so hard for me to comment on some of the barriers. I feel like I've been very fortunate. Probably maybe one of the biggest barriers that always comes up for discussion is communication skills. Because women, there's a book out. Is it What She Said? I forget what the name of it was, by this great author, and she was a USA, and she's a reporter. She's a well-known journalist. But a lot of times, women have faced how they're speaking or working and getting interrupted.
Mm,
And so, how to deal with issues like that, improving their negotiation skills and learning how to negotiate, how to say
mm,
no and turn in a situation and turn it around. I think some of these skills women don't uh, get to master until they're more involved in certain things in life and they have to step up in certain positions. And that's just part of the learning process where sometimes um, being on a team helps individuals master those skills better. I think
mm,
we're living in a more inclusive world now, so it's sort of on a case by case basis. But be prepared. This all goes back to the basics. Be prepared for things. Do your homework. Walk into a meeting prepared. Those are the things that make a difference. It's hone your skill set. That's what breaks things down. You've got the information, you've got the responses, you're working hard, you can contribute to the team.
mm. Awesome. I like it. It's a very what is merit-based
Meritocracy?
answer. I can't say the word merit. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. It's like be so good they can't ignore you.
Yeah, I think that goes for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to succeed, if you want to push your career forward, it goes back to this whole thing about discipline, hard work, continuing to educate yourself. I, that's the way I always think. I'm always thinking about
Mm,
what can I do to do a better job? How can I get better at whatever I'm doing? How can I educate myself more? What's the next alpha, beta, you name it? I'm like, okay, teach me something. I want to learn something more. I don't want to stay stagnant. And
yeah.
raise your hand, volunteer for things, do the work, step up, bring ideas. Those are the things that make a difference and help you get noticed.
That's awesome. I'm hoping everyone that listens to this is getting like so inspired and is like, you know what? I'm gonna sort of put my hand up, or I'm gonna ask
Well,
that question, which has been in
as
my head.
Dale Carnegie said, and he's like, I don't know, so many years before my time, and he's one of the most famous motivation writers and of all time, is he always asks, "What's the worst thing that can happen?" Because I
Mm.
was very, very shy. I carried one of his books around with me, which is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It's still in my bookcase right behind me. I literally carried it with me everywhere. And what's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody says no. At the end of the day, that's apparently the worst thing that can happen. So if that's the worst thing that can happen, put yourself out there. Somebody says no. You can, and as Chris Voss says, that's the beginning of the negotiation. No
Mm.
is the beginning of the negotiation. What's the worst thing that can happen is somebody says no. So, hey,
It's a win-win.
right, exactly. Use it to your advantage. So it's not the end of the
Mm.
world. It's the beginning of the dialogue. And that's what
Yeah.
people forget. And it took me a long time to learn that. And people get shy. One of the things, if you're shy, I always say when you're doing a presentation, hold a pen in your hand for security, or a paper clip. Hide a paper clip in your hand. You have something to grip on, and you have just this little security blanket.
That's so funny. A friend of mine mentioned that just over the weekend. She has like a vape, and she's like, I don't really care about the nicotine that much. Like, it doesn't do much for me. I just like holding something, because it does give that security. It's so interesting that you mentioned the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly little things in your life that can make a difference and take the de-escalate things and stop you worrying, because maybe, guess what, something really great could happen.
Hmm. Mm. So the two books that you mentioned, What She Said, I've Googled it in the background. What Men Need to Know and Women Need to Tell Them About Working Together by Joanne Lipman.
Yes, I
Does that sound?
interviewed her for
Yeah,
Forbes, and
amazing.
I learned so much from her. She's, an award-winning journalist, and it's a great book because I think a lot of women encounter situations that she details in that book, and that helps you break down those conversational barriers by giving you the skills that you need, because it's just a skill. You just need certain skills, and maybe because you haven't been
Mm.
taught them, you just have to go out and find them. So that it's a great book. And then I love Dale Carnegie, and he's so old school, but I mean, How to Stop Worrying, all his public speaking courses, all those things that I think those books were written maybe in, I don't know, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. I'm not sure, when so many of those principles are still so true. They're not outdated. And because
Mm.
everybody, and maybe I'm doing it tonight, everybody loves to talk about themselves. That's his basic principle. So if you talk to them and have them talking about themselves, they're like, uh, I love this person. This is so great.
The trust is interesting. Where maybe it's from that book. I have read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Phenomenal
Yeah.
book. The title's interesting. I feel like it kind of creates a barrier in people's mind. They're like, but I have friends. I don't need to know how to win friends. So it's like, it's actually a really good book. Get past the title. But trust seems to be not how much does the other person know. No, it's not how much I know about the other person. It's how much does the other person know about me. Because as I'm talking, I'm sharing information. I'm sharing this, and then it's like, well, I wouldn't share this information if I didn't trust the person. So you sort of build that trust. But it's counterintuitive when you don't really think about it. The
Absolutely.
other,
And
sorry.
authenticity today it's always been so important. So, I mean, you carry your reputation with you everywhere. And at the end of the day, you carry your network with you throughout your life. And so, building that
Mm.
network from an early uh, point in your career, at college, wherever, take care of your network. Your network takes you so many places in life, and it's a great
Mm.
thing to develop.
Amazing. The final book, the book I mentioned, I just want to so it's out there. Invisible Woman: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Carolyn Criado
I'm going to read
Perez.
it.
Awesome. I'll read it at the same time where we can talk
I'd love
about it.
to.
All right. Awesome. So final question, that's tie it back to retail because retail podcast. How do you think about leadership in retail? So as a company, do you have any sort of guiding principles? I feel like you're going to say something at least like, look at the world. How can you be part of the conversation? How can you maybe lead the conversation? But I'll let you speak to that.
Well, definitely it's about leading the conversation, how we pioneered the luxury performance category, and we sit at the intersection of luxury and performance. But that means actually building a conversation around that centers around the product, the consumer, all of the ways that we're touching them and thinking about every part of that journey. I think we as a company, and I know I am every day, I'm thinking about the journey every day. What is the consumer experiencing with our product? What is the consumer experiencing online? How are we talking and communicating with them? That could be the unboxing experience. It has to do with, our customer service desk where we're talking to them and on chat. Every little component deserves the enormous detail. And again, it goes back to the hard work and the detail, thinking about everything. And our culture, everyone is thinking about that all the time because we don't want to disappoint the consumer. We want them to embrace our brand, and we're doing that with them, and we're having this dialogue. We call it the APL family or the APL team. We sign everything, the APL team, welcome to the APL family. I mean, that's the way we feel about it. It's a very intimate journey with our consumer, and it's all about, again, this dialogue, this conversation. It's also about innovation all the time, pushing for everything new on the product front, on the communication front, on our website, on our customer service desk. Whatever we do, it's all about that. And
That's
our
amazing.
flagship store, which is
Yeah,
absolutely magnificent. It's an experience.
cool.
Everything is based on this
Yeah.
experience, whether, our shoes are the most comfortable. We have this breakthrough technology. You go to our store and, the product it's sort of like an art gallery. It's light, it's airy. And again, it's all product focused. And we always say, our product is the heroine or the hero, and you're the heroine or hero in our product. It's all about the consumer in our product.
It sounds like peak experience. You're like, well, how can I make every touch point in every experience like it's more than premium. It's really like just like the best possible, and always sort of iterating on all those points, which is awesome.
Right.
I did say last question, but go ahead.
Thank you. And it's about never stopping to ask those questions. It's about almost never being satisfied, which again, it's about this journey of discovery. Like, what's the latest thing? What's the next thing we can offer? What's the next thing we can educate ourselves and pass on to our consumer? It keeps life interesting. It keeps work interesting. It keeps our consumers interested.
Awesome. Okay, so actually, last question now. This is just pure personal question because I'm interested. This might be really easy or it might be hard. What do you like about fashion? Like, what about fashion interests you so much that you spend like so much time on, like your career is in fashion, you do your creative work in terms of your blogging in fashion, the way you dress, and you share that on Instagram. So fashion seems to be really important. I love fashion as well. But yeah, I'm really interested to hear what you like about it, what you love about it, really.
Well, I love it. Again, I think it goes back to my mother and her introducing me to the world of fashion because she came out of it. She was very creative and artistic, but I feel like fashion is this incredible way of how you can communicate your personality and your interests. It's so innate to me. It's an incredible form of self-expression, but I also love all the creativity and the vision that's involved in fashion, the fashion world, and how it continues to evolve and change with the times. And I love design. I love color. I have my own look. Somebody else has their look that's true to myself that I'm comfortable with. But I feel like that it's this wonderful form of self-expression, and I'm just, I'm just innately in love with the fashion world. I know some people don't
Yeah.
feel that way, but it just resonates with me to the soul of my being. And it's this form of self-expression, and it's one of the ways that I get to communicate to the world who I am, what I'm about. But I do it for me. That's the most important thing. It's about my journey. It's not about pleasing other people or their reaction. It's about how comfortable I am in my own skin.
That's awesome. You said something around the communication part where it's like, and I think it ties back to when we were talking about, well, like asking or talking. Like I feel like we don't talk enough. So, but you can't talk all the time. So fashion is like kind of a way of speaking without speaking, right? You're like, hey, this is me, and this is, you can't see inside me, right? Like you can't. It's just like I'm inside my own head, but I can make my outside appearance feel like how I feel inside. And here's like a true and honest expression of myself, and I can do that all without talking.
I agree with that, and I think you said it better than me. That it's absolutely, and I'm gonna use that and plagiarize that from you for the future.
Please.
But it is an expression of myself and me talking about myself and me putting myself out there in the world. And sometimes I'm feeling shy, and other times I'm feeling bold. And you know what? I admit I wear sequins a fair amount of times, and I don't mind going into a room and uh, expressing myself. It's taken me it took me a while to get there. But again, I got that from my mother. I mean, and also understanding design in architecture, fashion, cars. All these things are inspiration for products. I mean, a lot of our shoes are inspired by the aerodynamics of the automotive industry and other things, and car designs. And all of those things in fashion and art and throughout history are incredible inspirations to take forward with you. And it's important to be knowledgeable about those things. It makes the world around you more interesting. You're looking at things and you understand the history and the inspiration of it. I mean, that's one of the reasons the late, great Andre Leon Talley was so incredible. He had so much knowledge about the fashion industry. And when he wrote, he passed this on, and you got educated as well. So it's an education, not in just one thing, and it's an education about the world around you, cultures around you, different countries, the origins, and so many designers use all of that as inspiration in their work. So you can drill down to where the inspiration from the work is. It's often a study in history.
That's so awesome. It's like humans are kind of just pattern recognition machines, and we get this like dopamine hit when you'll say a quote, like we're talking and you'll say a quote from a film, and if I recognize the film, I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that film, and we both sort of feel good about it. And if you're widely sort of studied enough, or if you drill down on the garment and see the history, or if you're widely studied, actually I think it's if you're widely studied enough and you look at something and you're like, oh, I know where this inspiration came from, and it feels good to sort of know that about the world and see it sort of coming together and how art inspires other art. I watched, have you seen 2001, A Space Odyssey?
Yes, I have. I was a film student. Remember? Graduated.
Okay. All right. Done. So like there's that, and then straight actually before that I watched Ex Machina, which is about artificial intelligence. And have you come across that
Yes.
one? Okay, so watch them both back to back, and it's like, oh wow, like you can see how 2001 just inspired almost every movie in this genre. But like you can specific motifs, you're like, oh, this is from that, and it feels good. It feels good to the world is definitely more interesting when you are curious
Right.
that
And
way.
I think you brought up a good point, because what you can do from that, whether it's from fashion or these other history or the films, is that it inspires you in your own work and your own creativity, and it can lead to other ideas and things that you're working on, and you can bring that to your work. And one of the things when I was at Tisch, they said, well, what are you going to make films about? What are you going to write about? You need to educate yourself about the wider world and what's going on. And that's why the arts and sciences are so important, because that's where you draw the inspiration from for all of this creativity and and what's going on in the global world around you. So it's so important to tap into all these different things and to be curious. Be
Mm.
curious. I mean, I'm curious every day, and I also try to acknowledge what I don't know and say, wow, I guess I don't know that. I need to learn more about something.
Amazing. So many sound bites from this. It's like I don't even. We're just gonna have like 20 short clips. I'm just gonna put them everywhere. Wow, this truly amazing conversation. I really enjoyed this hour. We reached the hour mark. Really enjoyed this hour with you, NJ.
Well, thank you for asking me. This was really fun and very thought provoking. And I'm sure I'll think of a million things when this is, after we sign off, that I should have said, including that was my little, when I was at Universal Studio, when I was leaving and moving on to my next career move, Universal Studios owns the rights to the little engine that could. And that was my favorite childhood book, because it was always, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And I'm always like that. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And it's the slow turning of the wheels to, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, and you get to the top of the mountain. And
Amazing.
that's probably
That's a
really the
wonderful.
story of my life. And I just thought of that. It's, I think I can, I
Yeah.
think I can, I think I can. And you hear the wheels going and speeding up.
And do you think you can the further you go, the more you believe? Is that a thing? Like the higher you're going up the mountain, you're like, oh, like I'm pretty high up this mountain. Like sure, there's a way to go, and I want to get there. You kind of look around, and you're like, oh, I made it all this way. Maybe I can just keep going.
At the beginning of my career, I thought it was a sprint, and now I realize it's a marathon. And
Mm.
that's where I think I can, I think I can, I think I can is really probably the mantra of my life, is that you're never really at the top. It's just that you're on the journey going up the hill, and the wheels are turning, and I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. But you definitely have that vision board, and you set out certain goals and you go after them. And I know I set certain goals, and then I go set a new set of goals. I'm never satisfied just at that one point. It's like I got to that point, and then it's, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can.
Mm. Oh, it's just on that sort of setting goals and not being satisfied. I think it's worth sort of stating because I think implicitly it is true. It's some people are like, I'll get to the goal and then I'll be happy. And then they get to the goal, they're like, oh, let me get a bigger car or a bigger house or a bigger career, and then I'll be happy. But it doesn't sound like here. It sounds like I'm setting goals, but I'm enjoying the journey, right? I think that's implicit in what you're saying. And I just want to make it, I guess, more explicit. It's like you get here and then you shift the goalposts, but you're enjoying the journey and as you're hitting the goals, right?
Right. I'm absolutely enjoying the journey. And when I was starting the journey, I forgot to enjoy it as much as I do now, because at the start I didn't understand the whole process because you're new at everything. And now I realize there are moments to treasure, there's moments to enjoy, there's moments to step back, but then it's also all those moments of creating new visions and new goals. And that should happen your entire life. It should never stop. And maybe that's just me. I'm not a complacent person, but it's that sense of purpose in life. And I think most individuals want a sense of purpose, and they can say, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And guess what? They should go get the community, the mentor, the support, the team that all says together, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. The community going, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can together. Well, I can't think. We could talk for another 3 hours, really.
One thing we always do
Sure.
when we finally had something, like achieved a goal or something great's happened, a lot of us get on a call and we all clap for each other. Somebody accomplishes something. I mean, the group gets together and we literally clap and we support each other that way, because it's like a lot of times it's a big deal that something happened. Let's celebrate it. Celebrate it. Let's clap for each other. Let's cheer each other on. Let's applaud each other. Somebody on the team did something wonderful and incredible. Yay, we couldn't have done that without them.
That's okay. I like that so much is there anything else you would like to add? Because what I would like to do is we can end this podcast. I think we should just clap it out. We'll just clap and we'll fade away.
Let's
let's do it. Amazing.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The StrutFit Show. I've been your host, Angeleno. And if you enjoyed it, if you found some parts where you were like, this has added some value to my life, then please share it with a few other people that you think would also value this information or that snippet. And when they like it as much as you did, I'm sure they'll thank you. If you're interested in what we're doing at StrutFit, head to our website at www.strut.fit to learn more and get in touch with us. If you want to get in contact with me directly, you can reach me at ang@strut.fit. All right, that's all, folks. Till next time, take care.